So I'm not here to talk about AI or the precarious state of democracy. So I think they invited me as a palate cleanser. What a time to be alive when the climate crisis is here to lighten the mood. Had I known I was the palate cleanser, I might have opened with a different image. But this is whale blubber. In 1776, when our nation was born, it was one of the dominant fuel sources. Whalers would hunt and kill the animals and bring them to shore, where with a process called flensing, they would remove the blubber and render it down to oil in large vats. Whale oil had many uses in energy and manufacturing. When our forefathers stayed up late finishing the document that would give rise to a nation, they were likely fueled by wood burning, candlelight, and whale oil. Now let me just pose a very quick question to the audience. Large language models tell you you're supposed to do that at the start of a talk. Is anyone here relying on whale blubber as a primary energy source in your home or business? No. Okay, so we're actually going to come back to that later. So the reason you're not using whale blubber is because in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, we transitioned from wood and whale blubber to fossil fuels. In fact, in 1859, we drilled the first commercial oil well in the United States in Pennsylvania. So by the 1850s, we are entrenched in the fossil fuel era, an era characterized by our reliance on coal, oil, and natural gas for energy and manufacturing. And fossil fuels have given us a great deal as a society, but they have also caused us great harms, namely global climate change. When we burn fossil fuels, we disrupt the very delicate dynamic equilibrium of the atmosphere, increasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and increasing global average temperature. And the impacts of this are devastating. From premature mortality to respiratory illnesses, the devastation and catastrophic property losses, disruption to markets, food insecurity, threats to national security. Our reliance on fossil fuels has put us at unprecedented risk. The good news, though, is that here in Massachusetts, we're doing something about it. With the Massachusetts Global Warming Solutions Act, we have actually mandated our fossil fuel emissions reductions in our state. We aim to achieve a 50% reduction by 2030 and an 85% reduction from baseline by 2050. And in the city of Boston, we aim to do a 50% reduction from baseline by 2030 and a 100% reduction by 2050. And as a climate leader and an educator, people always ask me, can we do that? Dr. B, can we actually do that? Can we actually reduce our emissions by that much that quickly? And while I am a dogged climate optimist who was raised in Boston on the promise and possibility of what this city can achieve, my answer to this question is a little bit nuanced. I don't know if we can achieve this with the current infrastructure we have on the table. We need new ideas, we need new infrastructure, we need new solutions, we need to build new things to make this happen. I want to show you some data that's going to highlight a little bit of my concern as to whether or not we can achieve these reductions. I want you to focus your attention on the red wedge of the pie here. What we are looking at is data from our most recent year of complete data in 2024 for the city of Boston's relative emissions. And as you can see, the large majority of our emissions are stationary. 72% of our emissions in Boston come from buildings. And if we remove the slice of the pie that is for small residential, more than half of our emissions are coming from large commercial, industrial, and large residential buildings. And when we combine that data with data on energy consumption in a typical large commercial building, we see that the majority of the energy is being used in building, heating, and cooling. So that wedge of the pie is about 25% of our city's emissions. And it's that wedge that makes me a little bit nervous. Because to decarbonize that wedge is hard. And to decarbonize it in the time frame that we have laid out is even harder. But I'm very excited to share with you that our organization, together with many partners and the most influential institutions in our city, have come up with an idea. BOSS10, the Boston Area Thermal Energy Network. BOSS10 is a feasibility project led by the Boston Green Ribbon Commission in collaboration with the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, the City of Boston, and over 20 of the city's largest anchor institutions, including BU, Harvard, MIT, Northeastern, UMass, Mass General, BMC, our airport, and many of our largest commercial real estate developers. Before I get further into BOSS10, I want to lay some groundwork on thermal energy networks. That pun was very much intended, if you know about thermal energy networks. Okay. So thermal energy is just heat. And traditionally, we generate heat through the combustion of fossil fuels. But what if instead of generating thermal energy, we just moved it to where we need it? That would be way more efficient and fossil fuel free. If we could move thermal energy from local clean sources, it doesn't just reduce our fossil fuel emissions. It frees our region from the volatility of fossil fuel prices. It creates jobs. It reduces energy costs. We handle things at home here in Boston instead of having to worry about what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. TENS, or thermal energy networks, utilize a shared network of water-filled pipes that transfer heat in and out of buildings. These district-scale systems allow buildings to exchange heat with different energy sources, including the ground, wastewater, data centers, even the ocean. If you actually look just to our west in Framingham, there is an excellent example of a ground source geothermal network pilot that is thanks to a pioneering partnership between the nonprofit organization HEAT, who has done so much to move this space forward, and Eversource. They're providing geothermal heating and cooling to a mixed-use neighborhood. HEAT's networked geothermal system relies on heat pumps that connect buildings that can share their heating and cooling on the system. But ground source systems, like the one in Framingham, have to rely on the consistent 55-degree temperatures underground. And that is really tricky in Boston, because Boston is old and we're dense. So Boston's underground is quite crowded. It would be very difficult for us to reliably extract enough thermal energy from the ground to meet the heating and cooling needs of our large commercial buildings in an economically feasible manner. So what if we used something else as our thermal reservoir? Something we could share so that we could do this together. BOSS10 will explore how to transfer energy from a variety of targeted thermal sources: the Boston Harbor, the Fort Point Channel, the Charles River, the Mystic River, and the bedrock beneath the rivers. We aim to answer 5 key questions. 1, How much clean thermal energy can be reliably extracted from or stored in targeted thermal reservoirs we're exploring? 2, how can this energy be reliably and cost-effectively distributed to our end users? 3, what is the potential phased demand of our large buildings at our anchor institutions, and how does that align with our ability to reuse excess energy? 4, for those new thermal opportunities where feasibility is validated, what are the next steps to get the project ready for investment? I'm not talking about climate action planning anymore. I'm talking about shovels in the ground to get projects implemented. And lastly, 5, what are the regulatory and permitting challenges that apply to our proposed thermal energy network? Notably, this is working elsewhere. Our northern neighbors are using a system similar to this, the Toronto Deep Lake Water Cooling System, where they take very cold water from the bottom of Lake Ontario, they bring it to a heat transfer station on shore, and then cool water moves through the city in underground pipe networks, and they use that to cool commercial buildings in downtown Toronto. Last year, a group of us traveled to Esbjerg, Denmark, to see the world's largest ocean source heat pump in action. This Ocean Source 10 pulls water from the North Sea into a thermal energy network that heats the entire city of Esbjerg. We learned a lot in Denmark, and we talked a lot about the coefficient of performance, a measurement of the efficiency of heating and cooling systems. It basically means how many units of thermal energy can you get out for how much energy you put in. The coefficient of performance for these systems compared to traditional fossil fuel systems is 3 to 4 times higher. That means this could be 300 to 400% more efficient. So that brings us back to whale blubber. When I asked this room if anyone here was utilizing whale blubber as the primary source of fuel in their home or business, it was an obvious and resounding no with some giggles. That's because a new technology emerged. Civilizations advance when one technology becomes obsolete and a new innovation emerges. This series of talks challenged leaders across multiple domains to look at the next 250. And when I look at my vision for the next 250 years, I see fossil fuels as the new whale blubber. We are no longer using them because a revolution of innovations has emerged. And just like in 1773, with the Boston Tea Party, the revolution might come from the same harbor. Thank you.